Good. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel McCullough, and this is Kaylynn Powers. Our project today is on fungi, and we have found some really interesting fungi, and they play a really crucial role in our ecosystem. And we're going to tell you a lot about that. So, we're going to start off with the evolutionary history of fungi with Kaylynn.
Some evolutionary history about fungi is they first appeared around 1 to 1.5 billion years ago. They belong to a larger group of organisms, also known as the Opisthokonto, which also includes animals and some unicellular relatives. Each fungi plays an essential role in ecosystems by breaking down organic matter. They paved the way for the nutrient cycle that benefited other life forms. Over time, the fungi diversed, and it significantly helped the forms that we see today. Some distinguishing characters of fungi. Fungi are unique eukaryotic heterotrophs that absorb nutrients from organic matter, and their environment distinguishes them from plants and animals. Unlike plants, fungi do not perform photosynthesis. Instead, they rely on external sources for nutrients. One key characteristic is that they produce through spores, and they can actually be produced sexually or asexually, which allows them to disperse widely and colonize in new environments. This combination of heterotrophic nutrition, the spores-based reproduction, and being eukaryotic make fungi distinct among all the other organisms. We found three different important subgroups. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the zygomycetes. It's also called black mold or mocher and phobulus. These fungi are typically found in decaying plant material and soil, where they play a crucial role in decomposing. Zygomycetes are also known for their unique reproductive structure called zygospores, which help them survive in harsh conditions. This subgroup helps the ecosystem. The second subgroup is the sac fungi. This is a very diverse subgroup of fungi that includes species like morels, cut fungi, and penicillium, which is also used to create penicillin, and yeast. These fungi are characterized by their sac-like structures where they can produce spores during reproduction. Sac fungi have significant ecological and economic importance as they play an essential role in decomposition, in creating medicine and food production. For example, yeast is used in baking and brewing, while penicillium has developed many antibiotics. The third one is the club fungi. This subgroup is known for its mushroom-like and puffballs and bracket fungi. These fungi are distinct by their club-shaped structure where they produce spores. Club fungi decomposes wood and other plant materials, helping to recycle nutrients in the forest. Species like mushrooms are also important food source, while others contribute to soil health and ecosystem balance. And then this first picture is the zygomites. And the second one is the black mold. And then the third one is the club fungi.
All right. So the ecological significance of fungi, they play a few crucial roles for the ecosystem. First of all, they decompose and they recycle organic material. So oftentimes if we're walking through the woods, and we don't just see dirt on the ground. When we're walking through, we see a lot of leaves and we're going to see a lot of branches that have fallen from the tree. And that happens naturally every year. Leaves fall from the tree, branches fall during a windstorm. But if we didn't have anything to help break that organic material down, we would just be full of leaves and branches everywhere. So they need to be broken down back into the soil. Plus, and plants will actually bring up nutrients from the soil, such as nitrates and carbon, but they don't. Oh no, they put carbon back into the soil. Sorry about that. But they'll bring up nutrients into themselves from the soil, So they need something to break them down when they're dead to put the nutrients back into the soil. So the mushrooms and the fungi, they all do that. What they will do is for the fungus, they will secrete enzymes out onto the material they're sitting on, and those enzymes will break down that material and then they'll absorb it right back up. So instead of like how we eat food and our enzymes break down the food inside our mouths and our stomachs, fungus just like throws up those enzymes and then they like slurp it all back up, which is really kind of gross, but kind of cool at the same time. Um, so what they'll do after they break down this, they actually absorb that material through the cell walls of the hyphae, which you'll see down here in this picture, right down there. Um, and as they actually break down this material, they're absorbing it into themselves, but they leave some behind. And that's how those materials, those nutrients that are broken down from those dead and decomposing plants actually go back down into the soil. Plus, after a while, the fungus will die as well. And when it breaks down, it will go back into the soil as well. So it's part of that nutrient cycle that helps keep that nutrients flowing back into new growth and new plants. I'm ready for the next slide. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, some topic of interest. Some of these are my personal favorite. Um, mushrooms and other fungi are very essential for us as human beings, not just for the ecosystem as a whole, but we have particular interest in it as well. One of them is in food. So, I don't know about everyone else, but I personally love mushrooms and I love all sorts of different mushrooms. I'll eat mushrooms on my pizza. I'll eat mushrooms straight without even cooking them. I love my favorite dish every year for Thanksgiving is called bacon and mushrooms. And it literally is just a pound of bacon all fried up and chopped up. And then you saute the mushrooms in the bacon grease and you add them together. And it's amazing. So, mushrooms, amazing food that we eat. But also with baking, yeast is another fungi, and it's essential in both baking bread and in making beer and wine. So, what yeast actually does is when you put yeast inside dough, it will actually break down the sugar that is inside the dough. And what it'll excrete after that is ethanol and carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide is a gas that it releases after it's broken down the sugar. And that's what actually makes the bread all light and fluffy is that carbon dioxide. Which I don't know if you guys know, if you're a baker, you'll know that we're wanting to proof the yeast before you put all the other ingredients in it. So you'll put the yeast in the water. And sometimes what you'll do ahead of time is you put in some sugar as well, and then you'll start to see the bubbles come up because it's breaking down that sugar. And that's when you know you still have some good yeast you can use. Another fun story that I actually have is when I was in ninth grade, we put yeast inside a bottle of like cherry flavored water. We were trying to create our own soda. And it worked for the most part. A day later, it was a little fizzy, right? That carbon dioxide was there. But our teacher said, okay, you can't take this home. You have to drink it all or get rid of it. And we said, why? And he said, well, if you leave it sitting around, it doesn't just create soda, it will actually create alcohol because that alcohol is that byproduct of the yeast. When it breaks down that sugar, it creates the alcohol and the carbon dioxide, and then it'll be a little bit more fermented than ninth graders were allowed to drink. So that was one interesting fact about that one. Another really useful fungus is the antibiotic production, which is penicillin, and it comes from penicillium mold. And this mold just naturally produces penicillin. So there it how it's produced is they will actually produce penicillin in these big vats, and they will put the mold and a few specific sugars and some other ingredients all in there together, and they will let this mold ferment. And then the byproduct is the penicillin, and they'll collect that for medicines. And then one of my favorite ones to talk about when talking about a fungus or a mold, there are different kinds of parasitic fungi. And most of the time, when we're talking about a parasitic fungi, we're actually talking about the parasites that feed off of living organisms, living plants, usually. But in this case, I specifically had to look this one up because I saw it on a National Geographic documentary, and I had to include this one. So this fungus is Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, which is also called the zombie fungus or the zombie ant fungus, because this particular fungus, I believe it's native to South America, and it only affects carpenter ants. And what happens is when this ant is infected by the fungus, it just takes over its nervous system and kind of turns it into a zombie. It cannot do anything of its own accord. The fungus has taken over and it drives the ant to climb up a tree, and it'll climb up, 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 way up until it reaches the sunlight. And then the ant will latch onto the tree and bite down on it and stay there. It will not release its grip from the tree until it dies. And then the fungus uses the ant's body to sprout out and then keep spreading. And then the spores will spread and they'll infect more ants, and the ants will climb up more trees. So pretty cool and a little crazy, and it seems a little sci-fi, but it's real. So I thought I'd include that one in there too. So that is all about our fungi. Our next slide is all of our resources that we have found via the internet and researching around as well. So I hope you enjoyed, and that is about fungi.